Welcome to Against the Spread, where we here at Sportsnet for you on YouTube pick NFL games against the spread, and we've got NFL playoff games this week.
Finally.
I know, right? I feel like it's been a month that I've just been waiting for the playoffs to get here because you pretty much knew who's going to get in for the most part.
Other than some reseeding and, the 6 seeds or, the NFC East title, as we both saw go down. It's kind of been just like a holding pattern, like waiting, and we're finally here.
Yeah, well, we didn't know who's going to play who. We finally know that. So let's break down the wild card round, which for me is one of the most fun weekends of football that we have.
It lives up to the name.
Yes.
It usually does.
The Buffalo faithful are back in the playoffs.
Yes.
We knew they were going to be
so good.
And we figured they'd be facing Houston. They go to Houston, and I don't know if you've seen flights from Southern Ontario and Buffalo. The prices to go to Houston have been
sky high,
$2,000 plus.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's nuts. So we expect to see a lot of Bills Mafia in Texas. They will arrive there as underdogs, though. 2.5-point favorites are the Texans at home. To me, these are two teams that are actually pretty opposite. The Bills, we know what their floor is. They've been pretty consistent all year.
Yep.
Houston has had wild swings of playing really well and then playing down to their opponents. What do you expect in the Saturday 4:35 p.m. Eastern matchup?
I looked into this just a little bit before we started, and do you know the last time that the Buffalo Bills won a playoff game?
Would have been the last time they went to the Super Bowl and lost?
It wasn't that long ago, but it was pretty long ago. It was December 30th, 1995.
Okay.
When they won a wild card game. And this week, I think that streak comes to an end. I think Buffalo, as the spread shows us, Las Vegas thinks these teams are close. And I think they're close as well. But I think they have a couple advantages against the Texans that I think they will take advantage of. The first one is that they have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. And Trey White, which producer Drew just told me, has not allowed a touchdown all season long, goes in and is now covering DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that you can contain DeAndre Hopkins. You're not going to stop him. But the rest of the passing options for Deshaun Watson will be muted by this really good Bills secondary. And I think the second thing that they really have to take advantage of here is the fact that the Texans defense isn't all that good. I know they're getting J.J. Watt back, but he has been out for a long time. He'll still be a force in this game, sure. I don't discredit that. But what I do think is that it's going to be tough for him to come back. And I think the run game of the Bills can take advantage of this Texans defense. And I think Josh Allen can with the run game and then creating some play action. So I think that this won't be a cakewalk. It's going to be tough. Deshaun Watson will guarantee that this is going to be a tough game for the Bills, but I do think that they can win this game, and I think they'll break that skid.
Okay, so obviously the Bills are going to cover as their underdogs, and you have them going through. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit.
Okay.
I actually think the Bills will cover. I love their secondary, and Watson hasn't been great protecting the ball. In the last 3 games, he's got 5 interceptions. But I do think Houston's going to win a close one. And so I actually have them going through. Yeah, I mean, it can't be much closer. The line's 2.5. I actually have them going through to the divisional round, but I would not be surprised if the Bills pulled off the upset. And that's funny. 3 of the 4 wildcard games, and we'll go through them, I wouldn't be surprised if the outcome is either way.
Yeah.
And that would be the case for this one. So, sorry, Bills fans, I have you covering but not winning.
That might, I don't know how that applies to the curse. I don't know.
Yeah,
you only half picked them. I don't really know.
Yes,
we'll see.
That's true. I get so I'm not sure if I should apologize, but I will nonetheless because I'm a Canadian.
One more thing, yeah, exactly. One more thing with the Bills is they're really good on the road. They've been a better road team this season than a home team, which is kind of weird when you think Bills Mafia and how they usually show up at New Era Field. They're 6-2 on the road this season. One of those losses coming to the Patriots and one to the Browns, which we'll forget. But then they're 6-0-2 against the spread on the road. So that's kind of something to keep in mind as you think about betting on this game this weekend.
It's a good point. And listen, if this was a bowl game, like if this was college football and these two teams are playing at a neutral site, I think I'd pick the Bills.
Yeah.
I do think that they are the better football team. Both teams are 10-6. The Bills 2 losses to the Patriots, who are going to give you basically 2 losses every year, paying in the AFC East. And both games were relatively close, and they lost their quarterback due to injury in one of those games. So I think the Bills are actually a better team. I'm just leaning a little bit with Houston because of the home field, and because Houston, like talent-wise, they should be better.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that they're not going to play down to an opponent, that they're going to actually get up to play the Bills in a big playoff game.
We'll see.
Where they host and where they get Watt back. This next game, there's I guess 4 possible outcomes. Patriots can win in a rout. Patriots could win close. Patriots could lose close. Tennessee could win in a rout.
Yeah.
I would literally not be surprised if either of those 4 outcomes happen, which is crazy considering it's the New England Patriots. This is what they do. They play down in December, then they get up in January and February. But when you look at the matchup, I don't think they match up well against the Titans at all. Still, they are -5 favorites at Foxborough. Too many points for you?
It does. Yeah, it does feel like too many points for me. It's a little crazy that I'm going to say this, but I think it comes down to which Patriots team shows up here, which is not something we're used to saying about a Bill Belichick coach team. They're usually pretty consistent, and we know what we can expect from these teams. But if you look back at their past 2 games, the win against the Bills was clinical. Brady was confident, lots of short passes, screens, a really good run game, and they just drained the clock and kind of just strangled out the Bills, even though the Bills had a chance to win it late. And the defense played well, which is something we've come to expect. But then in that Miami game, it was kind of totally different. They tried the same things, short passes, good defense. They tried to run the ball, but none of it worked against a really bad defense, and Brady just didn't look like himself. But the weird thing about that Dolphins game, and the thing that gives me pause in this game, especially considering the spread, is that the defense kind of got rolled over by Ryan Fitzpatrick. And if they're playing a team like the Titans, who have Tannehill playing as good as any QB in the league, if not better, the best QB right now, I really do think that Tannehill can come in and do some damage, especially if they can get Derrick Henry running. And if they get that going, they get the play-action pass working, I think the defense could have some struggles. And as we've seen from the Patriots offense, they don't have big playability. And can they keep up if the Titans start to lay it on? I don't think. I'm not going to say necessarily that the Patriots will lose this game, but because of the 5-point spread, I do think the Titans can keep it close, and I'm going to pick them. They hang around in games.
Got it. I mean, so here's the thing. I'm in this playoff pool where you pick a player pretty much. It's like a fantasy. You pick a player at every position for that week. Then they're off the table, and you pick someone the next week, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
In the first round, I'm picking Derrick Henry against the New England Patriots because I would not be surprised if he rushed for 200 yards. The Patriots defense, I mean, we talked about them historically for the first half of the season, but 2 things stopped happening. They stopped forcing turnovers.
For sure.
And they stopped scoring points off of those turnovers. And that impacts not just obviously how they play defensively, it impacts that offense.
Definitely.
Who needs a short field and probably needs a little bit of a boost in terms of you helping to score points. The Patriots are 0-4 when they score 20 or less. So offensively, they've had their challenges. And we look at these last 2 teams, teams in the last couple weeks, since week 7, which is basically when Tannehill was a starter.
Yeah.
Titans are 7-3, plus 65. Patriots 6-4, plus 53. But the difference is actually the quarterback play. Tannehill's been a 66 total QBR. Tom Brady 54. And a lot of that is his lack of weapons.
For sure.
But I'm specifically afraid when you look at the opponent and who they're coached by. Mike Vrabel.
Right.
And Belichick's assistants have not had success on their own unless they're playing Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
We saw the Miami Dolphins and a former assistant just beat them. Their biggest loss in the last couple years was against the Titans last year.
Right.
And they also had the terrible loss against the Lions and Matt Patricia. So it feels ridiculous to pick the Patriots to lose at home in the playoffs, specifically when Tannehill is 0-7 in Foxborough. But a lot of those losses came when he was a Miami Dolphin.
Yeah.
I do not think the Patriots cover. But I am not that confident to hedge my bet so far and say that they're not only going to cover, they're going to lose outright. So Once again, I'm going to sit on the fence.
Yeah, you are.
I'm going to say that the Patriots don't cover, but that they get through. Even though, again, if I'm just looking at the two football teams, I actually like the Titans team better.
Yeah, they're more fun to watch, that's for sure.
They're certainly more fun to watch.
Yeah.
And it's something about that Patriots logo where I've been bitten so many times for counting them out at this time of year. I'm just not yet comfortable to do it this round. Now, next round, maybe that might be different.
Yeah, it gets much tougher.
But not this round.
At home in the playoffs, since Brady took over as starting quarterback in 2000, the Patriots are 20-3 at home.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's an insane number. 2-1 in wild cards, but that's just because the sample size is so small.
Small, yeah.
But 20-3, it's crazy.
I mean, I feel like I'm crazy picking the Titans to cover against the Patriots, but in 2018, 34-10, they put it on the Patriots.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that crazy. And their quarterback play now in 2019 is much, much better.
Oh, it's unreal.
With Tannehill playing
Tannehill's
so
been
well.
awesome.
Speaking of quarterback play, we have Drew Brees, who's still playing at elite level. Kirk Cousins, if you look at the numbers, is playing at elite level. But the questions with Kirk Cousins is always big primetime games.
Yeah.
Monday Night Football, playoffs.
Right.
Will you get that same level of accuracy? And so that's why we have the biggest spread of the first round. The Saints are -8 favorites at home in the Mercedes Superdome. Too many points for you?
I think it's a fair amount of points given the way that the Saints are playing right now and what we've seen from the Vikings over the last couple weeks. Of course, they laid a dud in that game for the NFC North against the Packers, and then last week they played a game that was pretty meaningless. But I don't think it's going to be a big of a cakewalk for the Saints as the spread might suggest. I think a big part of the Vikings' struggles, and I said it here before that game, against the Packers was because they didn't have Dalvin Cook. And surprise, surprise, Mike Boone isn't Dalvin Cook. You know, he's good. I don't doubt that. But he's not Dalvin Cook. And I think it looks like we're going to get a healthy Dalvin Cook back. And if he can run the ball and much like what we said about the Titans, establish some play action, that's when Kirk Cousins is at his best and much more confident and willing to throw downfield. And I think that's when the Vikings are also at their best. I expect there to be lots of points in this game. The Saints over the last 7 weeks are averaging more than 36 points per game. But I do think there are going to be enough points that the Vikings are going to hang in this game, and an 8 is just too big for me. I think they keep it within a touchdown.
Yeah, I was really torn on this as well because of the spread. I'm not torn at all on who's going to win the game. I think certainly New Orleans is going to get through. Cook coming back is so important.
Yeah,
right?
He's their most important player.
Yeah,
by a
over
long shot.
1,100 rushing yards and 13 TDs, and he missed a decent amount of the season due to injury. And this is the first time, speaking of injury, that the Vikings will have all their skill players back and healthy since week 6, between Cook being down and Adam Thielen being down.
Yeah, wow.
They've been banged up throughout the year, but you mentioned the Saints and that offense and their ability to put up points and averaging 36.3 since week 10. I don't know, even if the Vikings have everyone healthy, I don't know if they can hang with Drew Brees. This is the 4th straight season he's completed 70% of his balls. I think he's able to keep that Vikings offense off the field, not through the running game, which hasn't been as good with Ingram gone and Kamara having a down year.
Yeah.
I think those short passes to Thomas, just eating up yards and clock slowly, is going to have the Vikings die a very slow death and keep Cousins off of the field. And I do actually think the Saints are going to cover, and certainly I'm going to win. So we differ on that one.
Yeah. It sounds like Mike Zimmer's job might be on the line, too. I read a tweet yesterday that said if they get blown out here, they very well could look at his situation. He could be fired.
Yeah,
which
well,
is crazy.
As I never want to see anyone lose their job, although it is a constant in the sport of football.
Yeah.
But as a Cowboys fan, a former Parcells disciple and Cowboys assistant, if assuming they eventually fire Jason Garrett, which as we tape this, Jason Garrett is having his 3rd meeting to see if he will or will not be fired.
They're reminiscing.
Assuming he is removed from his position, Zimmer would quickly, I think, find work in the NFL, if not Dallas, but somewhere else, if not as a head coach, but certainly as a coordinator. Seattle at Philly.
Speaking of NFC East.
Yes, or the NFC least. Speaking of injuries, two teams that have been ravaged by injury, which makes this game really, really difficult to read. Seattle on the road, where they've been very comfortable this year, 7-1 on the road. It's actually better than their home record.
Yep.
They are favored by 1.5.
Yeah, the Eagles are underdogs again.
Yeah, and so the last game of the weekend, 4:40 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Who do you like?
These teams played in Week 12, and it was a 17-9 Seahawks win. But really, the teams couldn't be much more different now than they were back then. You already mentioned injuries. The Seahawks have lost all of their running backs. Now they have Marshawn Lynch and Travis Homer, who played well last week, but it's not Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. And the Eagles' offense from then to now is a completely different unit. They have got the most out of those practice squad players, and most importantly, Carson Wentz is playing really well, arguably the best football of his career, and he had an MVP-type season before he got hurt in 2017. So that's saying a lot. They've scored a ton of points over the last few weeks, and they've got more than 400 yards of offense in 4 straight games. And I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the quarterbacks here. All the injuries, these teams can survive those because these two quarterbacks are really good quarterbacks. And the Eagles are going to give Russell Wilson trouble. I think the biggest matchup in this game is defensive line versus offensive line. Eagles defense, Seattle offense, and I think they can get after him. In the last game, they sacked Russell Wilson 6 times. And so I think that happens again in this game. That's the only crossover from those two games. And I think the Eagles pull this out again as underdogs at home. I think home field advantage is huge. And I think the way that Carson Wentz is playing also plays a big factor. So home field advantage, Carson Wentz, sacks of Russell Wilson. I think that results in the Eagles pulling out another win as underdogs at home.
I think this is a big game for Carson Wentz, who's
been playing his first playoff game.
Yeah, playing really, really well down the stretch. The fact that he got 4,000 yards passing with no receiver who had 500 or more.
It's astonishing, really.
It's crazy. And the level of throws that he makes, both the arm strength and the accuracy, Patrick Mahomes is the only person in the league who can dial the ball the way he does. I'm just so weary of picking the Eagles because every time I pick them, they bite me. And it's probably not just me. They're 7-9 against the spread, 3-5
Oh, yeah, sure.
at home. And when you look at Seattle, I mean, they win or cover despite any logic. And for some reason, even though they stumble into the postseason, losing their last 2, in the last one literally really close against the 49ers.
Inches.
They got inches away from winning the division. They have 9 wins this year by 7 points or less. Yeah. Just something about Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, they find ways to win close games and win games that they really shouldn't win, if we're being quite honest.
They also find ways to lose close games.
This is true.
Right on the goal line.
The Super Bowl being
and last
week. But despite all that, I'm going to take Seattle. And I guess you're seeing a theme here. I don't really feel good about any of it.
No, it should be wild. That's for sure.
But I'm going to take Seattle, a team that, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about them potentially being the 1 seed in the NFC, which has been really, really difficult. So I'm not so far down on them that I'm thinking they're not going to be able to cover 2 points against Philly, who is in the playoffs because they happen to be in the worst division in football.
That's true. But they also had to win 4 games to get there.
They did.
I think this game's going to be close. This is 2 really good teams, and like you said, Seattle is good enough that they're going to keep this game close, obviously, and they have a very good chance of winning it, but I think it's going to be super, super close, like Seattle always plays.
Yeah. The Eagles, did they look good against the stretch, down the stretch? Yes. But were they playing the Cowboys and the Eagles? Yes. So that's why, the Cowboys and the Giants.
And Washington.
And Washington.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going to go with Philly. Okay, well, now that we've gotten through the wild card matchups, let's take a look at what the divisional matchups and championship matchups will look at like in each side of the bracket.
Yeah.
Why don't you do your AFC?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to have the Ravens in the divisional game actually hosting the Titans. I may not have been clear about that earlier, but I'm going to pick the Titans to win that game over New England, shock New England, and then have to go to Baltimore, where I think Lamar will be the difference in that game, and I think he gets his first playoff win. So Ravens over Titans in an AFC divisional game there, and then I have the Bills beating Houston in the wild card, and that means they go to Kansas City and they play the Chiefs. And I think in that game, Mahomes plays well, but I think what's going to be the difference there is the Chiefs' defense, which I think has stepped up over the last month or so and is going to have a good game against Josh Allen, and they're going to really struggle in KC. So the Chiefs and the Ravens will then go to the AFC title game, where I expect the Chiefs to outduel Mahomes and will outduel Lamar, and it'll be a game for the ages, and the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. That's my AFC prediction.
Listen, that's not crazy. If we were coming into the season, if you said the Chiefs end up in the Super Bowl, no one would have thought anything at that. And if Patrick Mahomes doesn't get hurt, they could be the number one overall seed, right? And
sure.
I mean, he got banged up twice this year, and the Chiefs did. Talking about outdueling, Mahomes was able to outduel Lamar Jackson early in the season.
Yep.
So I'm not mad at that pick whatsoever. My bracket for the divisional round shakes up a little bit different. It's pretty much chalk, to be honest, is my AFC.
Yeah.
Have the Texans winning, going through and playing the Ravens. The Ravens' last loss was Week 4 to Cleveland. And they've been,
that's wild.
Yeah, and they've
both that it was Cleveland and it was that long ago.
Yes, and they've been flying ever since. And so I do think that for the balance of the season, the Ravens have been the best team, and more importantly, they've gotten better as the season's gone on, and they've played their best against really good competition.
Yeah.
Aside from the early loss to the Chiefs, so I have the Ravens winning that matchup, and the matchup that really in this week I would be looking forward to if it does happen, the Patriots and the Chiefs, a rematch of the playoff game that was so great a year ago, but this time the Patriots are going to Arrowhead, and let's see if Patrick Mahomes can outduel and maybe end the legacy of Brady. A lot of people want to see that dynasty finally end as we start 2020. So I would love to see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win, and I actually think that they will.
Yeah, they have a really good chance.
I wasn't sure the Patriots were going to make it this far. So certainly with a week of rest for Mahomes and really 2 weeks of rest for the Ravens, I see both of these teams facing off in the AFC Championship game. And then I'm just going with Baltimore here. I think they are, outside of the top teams in the NFC, they are the most balanced team in the AFC and arguably in football. Kansas City is great on offense. I'm not sure if even with the addition of Suggs that defensively they're at a championship level yet. Yeah. And obviously the Patriots have had some huge struggles offensively, and their defense has come back to earth a little bit. Baltimore's been pretty balanced, so I've got them going to the Super Bowl in the AFC.
Yeah, despite all the talk about the Ravens offense, and it's deserved. The hype is real. But it's that Ravens defense, despite the fact that I'm picking the Chiefs, it's that Ravens defense that has really, maybe been the most impressive part of what the Ravens have done over the last 3 months, because they went from a unit that looked kind of suspect to one that is now a top 5 defense in the NFL.
Yeah, the addition of Marcus Peters really helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Offseason addition of Earl Thomas obviously helped as well. And again, I might be looking back at this YouTube video in a couple weeks and be like, how did you bet against Bill Belichick and the Patriots? Like, what
I don't even have them in the divisional.
Yeah, and I feel like every year we're like, okay, we're ready to bury the Patriots, and then they just come back to life.
Yeah.
But this year specifically, they're 2-3. They were, anyways, in December. That's the second month in Tom Brady's career that he was below 500.
Wow, that's crazy.
They just haven't been really good, and I think there are too many problems for them to fix. So I'm going to lean with the team who's been the best over the largest sample size, and for me, that's Baltimore. In the NFC, there's been so many teams who at different parts of the year have looked really good.
Yeah.
Who do you have in your divisional round and going through to the NFC Championship game?
So I have the 49ers in the divisional game hosting the Eagles, who are able to upset the Seahawks in Philadelphia. But the Niners offense in this divisional game just proves to be too much for the Eagles, and I think the 49ers, if that's the matchup, win that pretty easily. In the other one, I have the Saints, who beat the Vikings, although it's a closer game than expected in the wild card, and then go to Green Bay and the Packers and actually win that game. On the road, they are able to shut down Aaron Rodgers at home, and then they get out of that, and then it's 49ers Saints in the NFC title game, a rematch of that Week 14 game that was just so good. And I'm going to pick the Saints to win that game, to go on the road and do what the 49ers did to them and beat them at home in a wild game. I think we're going to have two really good title games in these playoffs, and I think the Saints win that game and obviously set up a Chiefs-Saints Super Bowl, which I think everyone would enjoy.
I would, for sure. And I like that pick. And I actually was close to having that pick in terms of the NFC Championship and who's going through. The issue to me, though, is the Saints' road to get there. I think it's going to be so tough. And we've seen it. It's tough for someone who is not a top 2 seed to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, I think this year is a bit different because the top 4 teams in the NFC have all been so good. But still, to go on the road, to Green Bay, then to go on the road to San Francisco, I think is going to be tough. I actually do have the same game in the 2-3 in the divisional round. I have the Saints and Packers, and the Saints going through.
Yeah. I don't know about the Packers. Like, Aaron Rodgers is obviously a Hall of Famer and can do anything. I'm just not convinced by them as a team. I just don't know that they have, the weapons on the outside that Aaron Rodgers is used to. I just don't know that they can win enough games to be championship caliber. I just don't believe in them like I have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, all these other teams, you could kind of say, okay, well, they're great at this.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Packers are great at.
No, it's true.
They had a stretch where they were great at running the ball. They had a stretch where they're terrible at running the ball.
Yeah.
They had a stretch where Aaron Rodgers was vintage Aaron Rodgers. They had a stretch where, once again, Aaron Rodgers was not on the same page as his play caller.
Yeah.
And their defense started the season great, then had some really low lows. So somehow they ended up continuing to win games because they're the number 2 seed in a very difficult conference.
13 wins is great no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
But they still kind of backed in. You won that game in Detroit on a last second field goal. It just doesn't feel like a team that I think can lift the Lombardi come the beginning of February.
Agreed. I do think the Niners can lift the Lombardi come February because they are pretty balanced. And we talked about acquisitions that really change teams. I think Sanders, bringing him in as a receiver, we knew they were balanced. They have 3 guys that can really run the football. They got a great defense, specifically a great defensive line. Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller offensively. Now they've got a guy who can run the top off of the defense, really give you lots of room for Garoppolo to make those intermediate throws. Mm-hmm. And they have a true number 1 receiver in Sanders. So I really like the Niners to beat the Seahawks, who I have as the 5 seed technically underdog by ranking, even though many people don't view them as an underdog. I have them getting through, but losing to the 49ers. And that's why we've got the same NFC Championship game with the Saints and the Niners. And again, I really love this Saints team. I love the offense. I love what Sean Payton has done with this team. And I feel like these teams were pretty close throughout the regular season. It wouldn't have been a crazy thought to think that the Saints would have had the number 1 seed. I like the Saints football team more, but I don't think that it's going to be able to win tough football game. The Vikings are really good. And to go Vikings, Packers, Niners, win,
2
win,
of those
win.
on the road.
Those 2 of those on the road, that's really, really tough.
Yep.
So I'm going to have the Niners in my Super Bowl. So to recap, my Super Bowl is 1 seed. Pretty chalk, pretty boring. Ravens, 49ers. But I'm looking for balance. And to me, those are the teams with elite offenses and elite defenses.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got them in my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But you've got a bit of a difference. You've got some fun offenses in your Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think two things about your bracket there. The 49ers Seahawks rematch, it'll be the third of the season, and it'll really decide, it'll be the decider of that rivalry this season. At least it's going to be a great game if that happens. And then that Super Bowl, that is a matchup of the best two teams, and we saw them play in Baltimore earlier this year, and it was a great game. But yeah, Chiefs Saints, I just can't help myself. I really want to see those two offenses go toe to toe, and I think it could be a high scoring, really fun Super Bowl.
I do think, and again, I'm going to rewatch this video and kick myself for saying this. I do think that it's going to be some combination of the four teams that we mentioned. I think they have been the best teams for the biggest balance of the season. I think if we were doing this in terms of a college football playoff, and we have to pick four teams to put them in. Yeah. We looked at their resume, look at their wins, look at their strength of schedule. I think these would be the four teams.
Yeah, you're probably right. The Packers being the team that, just loses out and is angry.
Yeah, the Packers are Boise State. Like they got a real nice resume. They're Central Florida. They've got some wins, but
does anyone believe in them?
Yeah, not really. So, sorry, Packers fans.
Yeah, we've been torching them here.
Yeah, although if I'm wrong, I'm sure Patriots fans are gonna let me hear it. We'll be back to do some more picks.
Yeah.
So make sure you are logged on to the YouTube channel. My favorite video of all of these are Super Bowl prop bets.
Yes,
we'll have that
always
certainly in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully by then you've made some money based on what we've told you today. Thanks for watching.